Radio TV Phono Nut here, and we have something that you don't see very often in the United States. This is an Eveready portable tube radio from probably the early 1950s, and this was made for the UK market and somehow made its way over here. And we'll now get a closer look at the dial and controls. We have our tuning knob here, and we have our volume knob here, and then we have our off, on, and band selection knob here, which this set is capable of receiving medium wave, which translates to the standard AM broadcast band, and long wave, which is something that's really not of any importance anymore. I think my first exposure to a radio with long wave was back around 1989 when I bought a Zenith Royal 3000 Transoceanic, and I don't recall ever picking up anything on the long wave band then, and I don't recall having picked up anything on the long wave band since then either. So all we're really interested in is the medium wave band. Here's the sides and the back of the radio. It's in decent cosmetic shape except for one corner broken off of the back here, and the back is held in place by this thumb screw. Formerly there would have been one here too, but that obviously no longer exists. So we have Eveready and some patent numbers and then battery replacement information there. So let's get the back off and see what we have. Here's the chassis, and this uses 4 miniature tubes. I think this probably uses the same lineup as our American-made sets, like what is it, 1R5, 1U4, 1U5, and 3S4, or whatever it is, and then this is our loop antenna. The IF transformers look to be like our old 1940s era IF transformers, so no miniaturized SMD prone jobs here. Here's our battery plug. I believe this operates on 1.5 and 90 volts just like our sets do, but this plug looks to be of a different configuration, and something I like about this plug, it's not on the USA made sets, is it has a string here that you can grab and easily pull the plug out of the battery, which is a handy feature because on most of the American-made sets, people would either grab the wires and pull the plug out, which would eventually break the wires off of the plug, or they would pry the plug out of the battery, which would sometimes break the plug, and depending on what they were using to pry the plug out with, if the battery had any charge left on it and they accidentally shorted the B+ to the filament pins, then that could spell disaster for the tubes. If you look at the tube sockets, you can tell that this chassis was originally intended for octal sockets, but this must have been a later run where they used miniature tubes. And I wouldn't be surprised if this radio don't just play to some degree without me having to do much to it. And here's one of the tubes. It's marked Eveready BVA DF91. So that's obviously an original tube. And here's a Mullard DAF91, and an Eveready DL92, and an Eveready DK91. So it looks to be 3 original tubes and then 1 Mullard replacement. Well, I was trying to locate the filament leads on that plug, and you see we have a helper that decided to get up in my lap. He wants my undivided attention here. So I guess I'd better give it to him. Okay, this looks like our 2 filament pins. This plug is wired in a cross section, unlike our plugs here in the U.S. Makes me wonder if this radio has seen any juice since it's been in the USA. Okay, so brown and black are are the tube heater pins, with, of course, black being ground. So that leaves red and yellow as the 90 volt B plus section. So brown A plus, black A minus, red B plus, yellow B minus. It looks like this says it uses an Eveready B103 battery, obtainable everywhere. Oh, so if I go in Walmart and ask for an Eveready B103, do you think they're going to come up with one for me? Probably not. And then when they can't come up with one, well, I just tell them, well, the label on the back of the radio says it's available everywhere, so why don't y'all have it? No, what I'll have to do, I'll just have to make a battery pack using about 10 cheapy dollar store 9 volt batteries in series and a couple of good quality D cells in parallel, and that should operate this radio for well, it won't be one you can just turn on and leave on, but with sporadic use it should last a long time. Alright, we have our very crude and well shop worn and hung out to dry power supply that I built from a kit from Antique Electronics Supply years ago. We have it set for 1.5 volts for the tube heaters, and we're on the 90 volt tap for the B plus. And then we're connected to the battery plug here after determining which pins were which. Now the way I determined that was to find the heater pins. I simply checked between all pins with the radio turned on until I found 2 pins that had a low resistance of a few ohms. And then we looked at the color wires, brown and black. Well, it stands to reason black would probably be our ground point, so between black and chassis we had a low resistance. So then that leaves B plus, red and yellow. Stands to reason yellow would likely be our low side, so that yellow lead had the lowest resistance to the chassis. So there we go. Alright, we've got power. Let's turn it on and see if anything happens. Well, we have a hum in the audio. What are we on? Medium wave. We have something of a station. Okay, so we most likely have an open electrolytic capacitor on the input side of this. Here's the chassis, and the whole thing slides out as one piece. You just remove the 3 knobs and 4 screws, and as you can see, the whole thing comes out. And for a battery operated portable, this has got a pretty beefy speaker in it, as well as wax paper capacitor, just like we used over here in the USA. And here's that electrolytic capacitor that I suspect is no longer usable. Here's the schematic for the octal-tube version of this set as found on the Radio Museum site. So we have our high tension 90 volt. Find something to point with. This alignment tool should do just fine. So we have our high tension 90 volt coming in here to one section of the power switch, and then it comes down through here to this electrolytic capacitor C22. That's the one I think is bad. And then it comes down here. The negative side of C22 goes down here to the chassis, which is also our low tension minus. Low tension's, of course, the low voltage for the filaments. And then, of course, our high tension minus connects to this R10 here, which the other end connects to the chassis. So we'll just, as a test, connect an electrolytic capacitor between B plus and chassis and see if that hum goes away. And if it does, I don't know what we're going to do about replacing that, because that is in a very hard to get position, and to tear everything apart to get to it would probably involve me disturbing the dial stringing, and I don't want to do that. So chances are that capacitor is dried out, and if it has to be replaced, I'll probably just leave it in there and find another place to tack in a replacement. I know that's not the proper way to do it, but in this case that may be what we have to do. In C22, the part in the radio is marked 10 microfarad, I believe, or 8 microfarad, and it's marked as such on here too, so we'll probably just replace that with a 10. But circuit-wise, this is pretty much the same as a US-issued portable radio, for the exception is of our models generally don't have the long wave band on them, but like I said, that's no longer going to be needed, so we won't worry about that. All we need to worry about is the AM standard broadcast band. But I believe back in the early to mid-50s, when this radio was made, long wave broadcasting was common in the UK, so I think that's why most UK models have that band. But like I said, it's not really a thing anymore. Alright, we have the chassis out. We have our one end of our substitute capacitor connected to B+, and let's connect the other end of the chassis and see what happens. Yep, that appears to be the problem. So let's clip that on there permanently. Now we have very distorted audio, which I'd be willing to bet is due to a leaky grid coupling capacitor for the output tube. That's good, just go out of focus. I'm getting tired of this. Alright, a DL92 cross-references to a 1P10, a 3S4, which is our American equivalent, a 3S4/DL92, or an N17, so just as I thought. And the basing diagram is 7BA. Alright, the volume is fading to oblivion. Alright, this should be G1, control grid, and I've got 1.6 volts, that's not right. This one should be our screen grid. I've got 60 volts there, that seems a bit low. And our plate, 44 volts. That definitely is not right. Now, when I remove the audio output, taking that load off of the circuit, we have 29 volts positive on our control grid, so that capacitor is definitely leaky. Alright, this one right here is our coupling capacitor. I had to do a little tracing because it doesn't connect directly to the tube pin. There's a lead, a very tiny lead, that runs from here down under the socket over to this point here, and that's where that kind of threw me off a bit. I had to use my ohm meter to trace that out, since I couldn't see the lead very easily the way it was all tucked under there. Alright, cap change, let's see what happens.
Retaliating hard following the Hamas attack. Israel's defense minister has ordered a complete siege on the Gaza Strip.
Now that's better, but it's still got some distortion at high volume.
In Jerusalem outlines the government's robust response. Israel's defense minister Yoav Gallant made an announcement that
modulation, tunable hum.
Wall Street, the Dow had 195 points and the Nasdaq adding 64 points. This is SRN News. Also at SRNnews.com, Dr. Michael Oren, former deputy minister for diplomacy in the Israeli broadband
Now this won't have that tunable hum
7 to 3 soldiers.
whenever I use a battery pack. In fact, I found sometimes when using this power supply, I can place a capacitor between B- and A-, and that'll get rid of that hum. Alright, let's see what we have on our control grid now.
You know, it's true. Difficult times have a
Negative 8.5 volts. That's more like what it should be.
because we're spending our healthcare. That's why so many people are joining Medishare right now. Medishare is a trusted way to save.
Here's another cap that has 11 volts on one side, and the other side looks to be going to chassis. Let's take the chassis side of this loose and see how much voltage passes through. Now with the ground end of that cap loose, we have 22 volts on the other side, on the B+ side. So this cap is obviously very leaky and loading it down. And then we have 20 volts on the grounded side, so this cap is almost shorted. Yeah, this cap is very leaky. It's supposed to be a 0.01. It's reading 0.22. So, yeah, it's an overachiever, all right. Overachieving and leaking. All right, there's that cap change, but every cap in here is going to be garbage. It's just, we found 2 of them that were extremely leaky, so yeah, they're all going to be garbage, and they all need to be replaced. Alright, I have that volume control coupling cap replaced. It was a little bit tough to get to. And the electrolytic bypass cap, I have it for right now soldered right there. Now, if I can dig that other one out and get it out, then I might move it, but otherwise it's going to stay where it is. Now all we got left are these 2 paper caps right here. Alright, this cap has about 57 volts on it. Well, we might see that if I turn the meter back on. Yeah, 57, 56, 57 volts. Let's take the ground end of that cap loose and see if that voltage comes up.
Does that mean you're all in?
No, actually it didn't go up, but the modulation hum went away. And so did the signal too. So let's just go ahead and replace that. See what happens. That's probably a screen grid bypass cap. Alright, I just got rid of the modulation hum by connecting a 0.1 cap between one side of the AC power line and B-. And that got rid of it.
It's a mile better than Dallas. It is real sugar against sweetener. One's fake. Okay?
Like transforming.
Fresca. Stop arguing. Bothered by it? Really? First and second round quarterbacks. You didn't have a problem placing that.
One last paper cap going. I'm going to give you a little example of how not to install a capacitor. This is something I've seen many times. 2 problems here. Number 1, you just don't tack solder the capacitor onto the terminal here. And number 2, we don't need all this excessive lead length. We want to keep our lead length as short as possible. Alright, that's better. That's more like the way it's supposed to be.
They have the largest
this sounds more like about what a radio is supposed to
in East
sound like.
Mississippi and West Alabama. Their selection of premium, hard-to-find bourbons and scotches is second to none. And if you
Overpowered 1390.
The Tire Decision Guide to find the right tires for how and what and where you drive. Choose from the...
Jasper, Lake, Smith, and Scott counties in east central Mississippi. Harper's Hospice Care provides medication.
Take care of yourself. You can still have hepatitis C.
Being local family owned and operated, Harper's Hospice Care is committed to providing personalized care and treating each patient like family. If you would like more information on hospice care, give us a call at 601-483-4134. Consultations are free. And
I think we're about getting to the point where we can build a battery pack for this and put it back together.
You need to make informed decisions.
So this was a case where capacitors were causing most of the problems.
Family Pharmacy.
This is Meridian's news talk station, AM 1010, WMOX Meridian.
Alright, I got it back together, and it looks like a little piece of styrofoam crap that got on the inside of the dial, but I'm not pulling this thing back apart right now to get that off. Those screws were a little bit of a pain in the butt to get back in there, and I'm just not fooling with it right now. But all we have to do now is build a battery pack, and we'll be in good shape. Now this dial is calibrated in meters, not frequency like on a USA made set. I have not touched the alignment on this. It really seems to be pretty close anyway, but if I have to align it, all of the tremors are accessible from without removing the chassis, so that's a good thing.
There was a man who was looking around, and you could see him mouth, "What the F are we doing?" If you're a player on that team.
Now, when I switched this to long wave, about all I was getting was harmonics of AM stations, and I think we've got a microphonic tube here. Most likely the first audio tube. Yeah, I believe so.
Our full of the packs on our back, maybe more. At one point, cigarettes were part of our daily rations. Smoke them if you got them. And boy, we were smoking them.
Here we are on long wave. Volume up.
What he first acknowledged was the defect.
See, that's nothing but harmonics of the regular AM station, so really nothing, like I said, nothing on long wave to be concerned with. Alright, that's 670, and if it's bringing that in, I'd say the alignment's probably pretty good.
Radio. Talk about sport.
I have a deep well in my brain for sports.
They talk about life. And opinions.
As far as portable radios, battery-operated portable radios, this is probably one of the better sounding ones that I've had.
Talk about themselves. Do you have any idea who I am? I had to take all my dad's underwear off the clothesline. I ended up being a very expensive chandelier in a house with no furniture. Wow. We're dropping knowledge on Fox Sports Radio. Tom Brady really was.
Okay, we'll come back later and do a band scan and see how this does after dark, but as far as I'm concerned, this thing's about done. Well, you know what? I missed one. I forgot to replace the plate bypass capacitor. Well, I can do that with the chassis in the cabinet. That's no big deal. Alright, that looks better.
Not a condo project.
Well, you know, people who talk about these line bypass capacitors don't affect anything. Well, in some cases they do. So if a radio has one, then you should put one in its place. Because notice what happens when I disconnect this. There it is in circuit.
Straightened out, seriously.
There it is out of circuit, and we got tunable hum.
And if this unit doesn't sell, or it sells for less because of smoking dogs, I'm coming after y'all for the difference in about lost value.
So there you go.
Manage the property like your job is.
Now, as far as a battery pack, what I think I'm going to do is get 2 D holders, connect those in parallel, and then I'll put 10 9-volt batteries in series, and I'll use individual snap connectors on each battery so I can hopefully line them up where they won't take up as much room in a box. And then I'll probably use clip leads that match the colors of the wiring on the wiring harness for the battery cable, except for the brown one. I don't think I've ever run up on a brown clip lead, but I just use green for that color. And have one end of the clip leads soldered internally to the battery box, and then we can clip the others onto the existing plug and not have to remove the plug from the radio. In other words, keep it original. But I'm not going to do that right now, but eventually I will. Let's see, it's about 6:30.
Which is, I have such a low interest
rate. See if we can get any
and now I'm
distant stations yet.
We're waiting on rates to come down to move because of that.
Over the years, it made a difference in my life. Sign my Bible.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit, but
Two Super Bowls to be considered.
They'll get you fired from your company. They'll get you. Come down, just.
Texas, number one. From a conference perspective, if you're going to win the championship, had a tremendous, particularly in Latin America. Let's squeeze one more.
yeah, we're getting some stuff, but it'll get a lot better as it gets later.
When you intervene in a domestic.
All right, we're inside. It's dark outside. It's after 9 o'clock, so listening to the stuff about Israel. Now, on the subject of the power supply, I could build an AC supply for this set, small enough to conceal inside of the radio. I could either get a dual secondary transformer, one with a high voltage winding to provide the B plus, or then another one for the low voltage winding, or I could take two, say, 6.3 volt filament transformers and wire them back to back, and then get our filament voltage. I could derive that from the junction between the two transformers, bridge rectify it, filter it, and regulate it down to 1.5 volts with a LM317 regulator, and then just build a bridge rectifier network and a filter and some resistors to get the high voltage. But if I did that, I would have to cut a notch in the back cover to run the AC cord through, and I really don't want to hack this set up, so I think I'll just go with the battery pack option and use this radio as intended, even if it's only sparingly.
The difference by choosing the superior cell phone service, the same service as the big carriers, but get rid of it.
What he was going to do now, doing that, of course.
Gary Alexander was.
That's WSM booming in. That's really my only motivation for fixing these things anymore, because as far as music stations, that's about all that consistently comes in that I can listen to, and there's really not much below 650.
Third quarter, tune in to watch
All the excitement of the NFL next Sunday on CBS. Check your local listings for games and times in your area. Catch the NFL on CBS. Second down 4.
It was a 6-year effort that he made to get state sponsorship for this voyage. And finally, in 14 minutes...
As contagious as bubonic plague. The testing one, the infecting all.
Oh, that's so true, right out of the...
Americano, el equipo de los Green Bay Packers lo hizo en su primer... Got delays around the Braves Stadium where the Braves just beat the Phillies. You've got delays on I-285 eastbound and on I-75 the surface streets around Truist Park there.
From Atlanta.
And in Cobb County on I-75 northbound, you've got some...
Yeah, that's got to be WSB.
Our authorities in northwest suburban Woodstock say they were aware of the gas leak before it led to an explosion that demolished a home and scattered debris.
Your own personal space, your home.
You must say to yourself, what in God's name is going on here? What?
Put your hands up in the air and say, screw Israel, or whatever they'll shoot you right in the face like a dog.
Rob, a politician.
I don't know. Hypothetically, let's say
a visible gap in their home's protection.
That's probably WDIA Memphis.
Instant results on their first office visit. They're even lasting 90 minutes or longer, regardless of age or medical history.
Don't just take our word for it. Call Precise Men's Medical Center now for our limited time offer. Your initial consultation and first treatment are completely free. You'll see instant results right in the office. You'll even get a gift that when you first wake up.
I'm Tom Ackerman, Debbie Monterey, and I start your day at 5 a.m. with the morning's headlines. Plus, Roger Brant has traffic. Vehicle crash. It sounds like it's in the medium southbound. Feeling DeVore with the latest forecast.
Today's highs 95 to near 100 in real fuels as we go to
sports and so much more.
I'm Megan Lynch. At 8 o'clock, we go beyond the soundbite. We give you context, perspective, big name guests, and in-depth conversation.
Total Information AM. Weekday mornings beginning at 5.
Make my morning.
On KMOX.
The voice of St. Louis. News that matters to you. KMOX.
Carmen.
Throw him a big fat one.
The Tire John Studios. Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't understand. Right there. Baltimore. I mean, it's a fleet.
Stop pretending that there is no occupation.
With new neighbors that are being established for the
I think when I was flying it outside in the dark, I think it did better out there than it's doing in here. I mean, it's not doing too bad in here, but I think it did better outside because in here we got several things plugged up in close proximity that could be hindering our AM radio performance.
For it, it's through the end of the month. Investors sent shares.
Like I think I've already said, this is a decent sounding radio.
There are auto workers on the picket line now, but they aren't striking. Detroit's full free.
A lot better than the average battery operated portable.
John Foy will fight to get. They lost a lot of games. Anytime you lose 100,
they can do with you what they will.
Pointing to one another, they weren't sure of.
The one thing I like about WSM, or one of many things I like about them, is you always hear something new whenever you tune into them. They're not your typical iHeart-owned classic country station that plays the same 20 songs from 1980 to 2005 over and over again. And that's what I like. I like variety. I don't like to hear the same things over and over again. So with that said, we'll turn this thing off. And that's about all I've got for this. One day I'll build a battery pack for it, and we can use this as a true portable EMP-proof radio. I hope it never happens, but if the big one ever does happen, then this radio should survive. Of course, being most of radio stations now are using all solid-state equipment, I don't know how well that'll survive, but I know there are still some tube transmitters still in service, or at least in backup duty, that could be put on the air if need be. So there you go. So I hope you got something out of all this, and more to come later.